Alright, so now I am going to teach you how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. So I want to preface this by saying this is going to be a very basic tutorial teaching you only the bare essentials that you will need to know when working with Premiere. So we're going to start out by grabbing my footage. I've already put it onto my computer, but usually you just want to plug in your SD card, and that usually appears down here as a little external hard drive. So if you open up, usually it has your content folder, and you just kind of go through all these, make sure that find wherever the footage is, and then get it out. Do whatever you need to do. But once you get your footage, you then want to bring it into a new folder. So what I like to do is I like to organize all of my different videos that I've edited into separate folders. So every single one of these has a different video in it. So I'm going to go into Poetry Night. Now this is an actual event that I did record, so we are going to edit it. I like to make a separate folder for the raw footage, just so if for whatever reason you need to go back and get the original video clip, you have it saved in a spot that you can remember. So now we are going to open Premiere. It usually takes a minute to do that. And then we're going to create a brand new project. Yeah, that was a little issue right there. It wasn't opening. I just had to right click it, click quit, and then reopen it. Sometimes that happens. So while this is opening, I want to preface this by saying Premiere Pro is one of the most widely used editing softwares on the market right now, and it is a very self-taught program. What I mean by that is if there is something specific that you want to edit, like for example, if you want to put music underneath your video, if you want to make a cool transition, if you want to do black and white noir or anything really, this program has so many tutorials online that you can teach yourself how to do practically anything of it. I guarantee you there's a 99% chance that if you go on YouTube and look up a tutorial for how to do a specific thing in Premiere, it will exist. So now we are in Premiere, so I'm going to go ahead and make a new project. I'm just going to call this Poetry Night. Click location, choose location, go find my folder, click select, create, and then you usually want to skip this page. All right, so now we are in Premiere. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, this is just personal preference, so keep in mind that it's usually up here. I'm going to take this, move it down here. All of these panels, you can move them around and do whatever you want to do with them. So before I start, this is the first one that you're going to want to look at here. This is your project tab, and this is where you add your media. You can either click this button, or what I like to do is simply going in here, dragging my footage into the media folder, and now as you can see down here, it's generating a file for this footage. It is a very long event, over a little about an hour and a half. So I'm going to click this, and I'm going to drag this over to my timeline, and there we go. It's going to make a duplicate of the video, which is, that's called the sequence. So here we are. This is what Premiere looks like. So this tab right here down in the center, this is your timeline or your sequence. This is where all of your footage is going to go. This is where you're going to put all of your extra stuff, your graphics, your music, whatever you want to put. This is where it goes. This is your viewfinder. So this shows you what's actually going on in the video. On the right-hand side over here, these are your audio levels. So this is to check your audio and make sure that your audio is looking good. The top right over here, this is your effects panel. So this is where you can put in a ton of different effects. There's so many that you can choose from, but I'm mostly going to be sticking to transitions in this tutorial, since those are the ones that you'll need to know for this video. And then this panel over here, this marks your effect controls, your text, markers, The main two that you're going to be focusing on is text and effect controls. Text, of course, is pretty self-explanatory. If you want to put text on your screen, that's where you go in and edit it. And your effect controls is messing around with the different effects. So if I go down to my timeline over here while it's generating this peak file, one of the things that I want to do is I want to be able to look at my audio a little bit better. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different tracks over here. We got things like V3, V2, V1, A1. What that stands for is V stands for video, A stands for audio. Each track you can put a separate video on, and the higher the video is, the more priority it will have in the timeline. So for example, if I were to put another video, if I just take the same video and I move it into my timeline, now it's the same video over top of it. But as I'm scrolling through it, it's going to be playing this video over V1, and they're both going to be playing at the same time, but I'm only going to be seeing the video from V2, even though I'm going to be hearing the audio from both. So I'm going to get rid of that because we only have one video clip that we need to worry about for right now. Another thing that you can do is you can use, as you can click and drag each audio file or each track and extend them out a little bit so you have a little bit more space to work with. I like to do that for my audio so I can see more of what I'm working with. Next thing that I should probably teach you is keyboard shortcuts. Premiere has a ton of keyboard shortcuts that I like to use. So first up, your plus and minus key. When I click the plus key, it's going to zoom in to my video. This will be a little bit easier to see if I scroll to the end here, and I press plus, it's going to zoom in, minus will zoom out. So if I scroll to the beginning of my timeline and I press play, ooh, okay. So the first thing that I want to do here as I'm looking through my my audio, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it when we're going back through the in the tutorial video, but one of the first things that I need to do is I need to lower that audio since it's too loud. So how you lower your audio is if you look very closely on the audio bar, there's a small white line. What you do is you click on that bar and you drag it down. Dragging it down reduces the volume of the audio, dragging it up will increase it. So I'm going to reduce it, and it has a little number on the side, minus 7.1 decibels. Decibels is just the standard unit of measurement for audio, and I play it. That's much quieter. I'm just going to lower my computer audio just because I want to be able to hear what I'm saying as I'm communicating to you guys. So as you're scrubbing through your timeline, you can either do it the normal way by looking at this blue line right here. This blue line will show you where in the video you are actually playing at the moment. So you can either click and drag that line to scrub through the video. The other way that you can do it is if you want to watch the whole thing. Let me just lower the audio and mute it for a moment on my computer. So one of the things that you can do to scrub through the timeline is you can fast forward and reverse. So to fast forward, you press the L key. And you can press the L key multiple times and the video will start to fast forward and you can scrub through the time much faster. Next to the L key, if you press the K key, that will pause the video, but you can also use spacebar for that. Spacebar is just infinitely easier. And finally, the J key will start to rewind the timeline, and if you tap that multiple times, it will rewind faster. So there we go. What else? Oh yes, the next thing that I should probably teach you is the bunch of different keyboard shortcuts on the left-hand side of the sequence. You can see that there are a bunch of different tools that you can look at over here. The main ones that I think you should focus on are your selection tool, which you press V to swap to that, your razor tool, which is C, your pen tool, which is P, and your text tool, which is T. All of these are useful in their own regard, but for the type of projects that you'll be working on at MCCAM, these are the ones that you want to be prioritizing. So V is just your standard click to go around and do a bunch of things. Let me demonstrate what the razor tool does. So I'm gonna click it, or you can press C, one of the two, it doesn't really matter. So now, if I hover over my timeline, there's a small blue line on the section of the video. If I click while using the razor tool, that splits my video into two separate videos. And now I can click and drag my timeline and move these around. And if you want to undo that, let me just split them again. If you want to undo that, you're going to want to do hold Command and press Z, and that will undo what you just did. It should be Control Z if you're working on a PC, but we're doing this on Mac, so I'm going to be explaining things using Mac terms for now. But bear in mind that these terms will be different if you're using this on your own personal computer and you're using a PC rather than a Mac. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to show you is the pen tool, which is P, and this is incredibly useful if you are working with your audio. So I'm going to scroll to the end of this timeline right here. Alright, so I remember this when I was recording this video because I was the one that recorded this. So in this instance, my speaker left his microphone on the table off to the right, which that's no good. Now he's significantly quieter than he was before. So I'm going to scrub through the timeline just a tad. Right about here seems fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my pen tool and I'm going to click on the audio bar. What that's going to do is that's going to set a keyframe. A keyframe is something that you do a lot with editing. For example, if you wanted to zoom in on the video, a keyframe is going to tell the program this is where the start point is, and then you can set another keyframe. I'm going to do that on the timeline right about here. And now I can raise this second dot just a tad, and now the audio is going to get louder over this period of time. So if I zoom out, then zoom back in, there is a small line moving from the first dot to the second dot, and the audio is going to increase in volume over that time. So let me play this back a bit. That's taking a little bit too long to raise the audio, so now I'm going to move this keyframe forward a bit. And that sounds a little bit better. So that's what the pen tool is used for. So now I'm gonna scrub through the timeline to where my speaker picks up the microphone again. There it is, right about here. Zoom in on the timeline, press P to swap to my pen tool, click to make another keyframe. You usually want to do this because if I made another keyframe and I just went straight down with this, now the audio is going to slowly reduce in volume over time from that previous keyframe that I made all the way back here. So I'm going to undo that. Now I'm going to zoom back in, press P, and once again, I did that by clicking V to swap between my keyframes. That's just something you're gonna have to build up with muscle memory over time. But back on my keyframes over here, I'm on my pen tool, make another keyframe, and I'm gonna lower the audio back down again. So I did this a little bit too forward in the timeline, so let me scrub forward right about here. So now I want to move my keyframe over here and move my second keyframe over here. So let me listen to that back. Okay, so now when we're looking at our timeline, I'm going to click play, and as you can see on the right hand side, you see how the audio level of the right side is different than the one on the left? That is because I use two microphones in this shoot. So what's happening is the program is giving me audio from the microphone in the speaker's hand is coming in through my right ear. The microphone on the actual camera is coming in through my left ear. Now, obviously, that's going to be very disorientating for anyone that's watching this with headphones. They're going to notice that, and that's not going to be very good to listen to. So if you're ever recording an event where there is a speaker and they will be mic'd up, this is a trick that you can do to fix that audio. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Effects, and I'm going to type in fill left with right. So this is under audio effects. What this is going to do is this is going to basically replace one audio track with the other. So in this case, it should be fill left with right. And if I click and drag this effect, and you can see how my audio is highlighted blue, put that on the audio. Let's listen. Now the audio is perfectly matched and there is no disorientation. So I'm going to go back in my timeline just to check and make sure that's all good. All right, perfect. So now our audio is sounding much better than it did before because we were able to make it so that the audio is not different for other ear by doing it that way. There are a ton of other effects that you can put in over here. The next thing that I'm going to show you how to do is how to shorten and lengthen videos. So for whatever reason, let's say, for example, I'm going to go to the beginning of my timeline over here, and I don't want to listen to, and in this case, the librarian is coming up and she's introducing the speaker, and that's not really necessary for what the audience is going to see in the final cut of the video. So I am going to scrub through my timeline just a little bit. Let's see, how about right here? Nope. A little bit more. Right about here. That seems like a good place. So, everything before this instance I don't want. So how do we make sure that the audience doesn't see all of this? Now there are two ways that you can do that. You can either use the razor tool and cut and then delete that footage, but that gives you a lot less flexibility. The easiest way is to shorten the video. How do you do that? So what you can do is you can click and, nope, it's not that one. So I'm gonna click off of that. So this was a little bit tricky for me to get. You want to hover over the very end of the video, and you should see this little red bar. You click, and then you can drag your video, and that will shorten it. So what I had to do was I had to move my video just a little bit down in the timeline just by clicking and dragging it, so now there's a bunch of free space over here. And this is all black video, so you don't want to do this in the final production. So to make sure that your video is playing at the beginning of the timeline, I can click, this space will turn white, press the delete key, and now we're back to the beginning. So I'm going to scrub through the timeline just a bit. So there we go, that should be good. That's a lot better. And now I can click and drag. The video is shortened. Delete that. And now we're back. All right, so now our timeline is a little bit cleaned up. We fixed the audio. I've shown you how to shorten and lengthen things. I'm gonna demonstrate once again as I scrub to the very end of the timeline over here. Let me just zoom in. So I'm gonna leave that in. The professor, everyone starts clapping, camera zooms out, things are cleaning up. I'm gonna shorten the video right here. Professor makes a joke at the end here, and it's kind of funny, so I'll leave that in. So now, as we're getting to the end of the video, I'm gonna show you how to close this out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into the timeline, press P once again, make a new keyframe, make a second one over here, press V so I can start editing it, and I'm going to lower this second dot down to the bottom, and over the course of time that will lower the audio until it is completely gone. Now what I want to do is I want to fade this video out to black. How do I do that? With this nifty little effect called cross dissolve. So I'm gonna click on cross dissolve, drag it down. You wanna put it on your video. So this is going by a little bit too fast, so if I go down onto the bottom over here, there's a little rectangle with a cross through it. I can click on that, drag my cross dissolve over here. Now the cross dissolve is a little bit longer, and if I play the video, over the course of time, it now fades out. And I am going to do the same thing at the very beginning. So I'm going to add another cross dissolve at the beginning over here. That is way too short. So I'm going to extend that out. I'm also going to do the same thing with the audio, make a new keyframe, make another one over here, press V, lower the original audio so that over the course of time, the audio and the video. There we go. Things are looking much better. Okay, so now we've got ourselves a video. We've managed to fade in and out. We've fixed up the audio. Now what I'm going to demonstrate to you how to do is how to add text to your video. This is going to be very important when you're doing videos for MCCAM because these opening graphics are going to tell the people watching the video what's going on, what event are they watching, when did this occur, and who was filming the video. So this is important when you're making credits, if you want to add captions, or if there's a lower third, which a lower third is simply giving the person their name and their title. You see that all the time on the news. When a reporter is coming up and saying things, it'll give the reporter's name and their title. In this case, all we want to do is explain where we, what's going on. So I'm going to scrub to the beginning of the timeline. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to click and drag this timeline sequence down a little bit so that I can see things easier, because right now we don't need to look at the timeline as much. I'm going to press T to open a text box, and I'm going to click on the video. Anywhere is fine for now. And the name of the event was the National Poetry Month Cafe. Okay, so already there's a couple of things that we got to fix on this with this text. So I'm going to go up to the top left over here. There's a little text bar. Nope, I'm not going to click on that. I'm going to go to Effect Controls, and there's a little eye over here that says text. I'm going to drop that down. That's where you're going to look at it. Premiere can change things up from time to time since it is a product owned by Adobe, and they edit and they change things, which can be a little annoying. So if you're watching this video in 2027 or something really far down the line, some things may be different than what they are now. And the reason why I made that mistake is because sometimes Premiere likes to change things up. But I digress. So now there's a few things that I want to fix about my text over here. First order of business, it's too small. So I'm going to hit Command A. That's going to select all my text. Now on the left over here, there's font size. I'm going to click and drag that bar, make that bigger. That's a little bit too big. Bring that down. I want to make sure that this is aligned with the center. So if I go underneath font size, I'm going to click Center Align. Now all of the text is going to be aligned centrally rather than just going straight left to right. What else do I need to do here? I also want to change the font because I don't really like the current font. So near the top, there's a drop-down menu, and you can see all the different fonts. There is a ton of different fonts for you to choose from. In my opinion, though, the best one, if you just want a catch-all font that's simple, professional, it's not going to really cause any problems, you're going to want to go with Times New Roman. So I'm going to select Times New Roman. There we go, looks good. I'm going to click back on my text box, press enter to make a new line. The next thing that I need to give is the date. This was recorded on the 9th, 2025. Press enter again. This was recorded at the Middleborough public library. So I'm going to write that down. And this will be our opening graphic. This is all we really need to do. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to reposition it. So I'm going to change to my selection tool. And now I can click and drag the text box and move that around. The other way that you can do this too is you can use the transform option. So underneath, this is the same for video and any text box that you do. Underneath it is the transform tab. So if I click on position and I drag this, this is gonna move my text box left to right. The second value is up and down. There we go. So I'll do it this way. I'll lower it, and then we're gonna move this off into the corner over here. I think that text is a good size, but if I want to change it around, underneath it is scale, so I can increase the size of it, lower the size of it. You can also click on the number and set it to a value manually. I'm just gonna set it to 100. Rotation, this will rotate the text box. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to set that back to 0. Opacity, that tells you how clear the font is. So if I lower it, it's going to make it see-through. Go back to 100. Now it's completely clear. And all of these can be changed over time. You see how there's a stopwatch over here? I can click on this stopwatch. I'll do it just as an example. And then if I scrub forward in the timeline and I make another keyframe, which right here I can click add keyframe. Here we go. I need to click back on my timeline and I'm going to zoom in. This is probably going to be more important for right now. So as you can see, if I zoom way in on my timeline, this purple box right here is my text box. But this doesn't last nearly as long as I want it to. So I'm going to click and drag this. And I'll just demonstrate how the keyframes work really quick. So I'm gonna click on the stopwatch to make a keyframe, scrub forward a little bit, add another one, and then we'll just move this over to the other side, just for the sake of argument. So now if I scrub through on the timeline, if you watch the text box, as we hit this keyframe, now the text box is moving. So that's how you do that. If you need to move anything around, I'm going to click on the stopwatch to delete the keyframes. So I'm going to go back in the timeline. So one thing about this is, given the background and the color of the text, it's going to be a little bit challenging for the reader to read that. So I'm going to click T, click on my text box, so everything is highlighted, press Control A, so everything is highlighted. Now I'm going to go down, or rather scroll up, I should say. I am going to add a stroke to this and then change that stroke color to black. And if I click off my text box, now as you can see, there's a little black outline around my text box. So that's going to make it just a tad bit easier to read. So that this trick usually pops up in situations like this where I have a very white background with white text. It's going to be a little bit harder to read. I want to increase that value a little bit because it's a little bit hard to see that black outline. I'm going to make that a little bit more obvious. So I'm going to click on this number next to stroke, set that to 6. How does that look? Much better. All right, the text looks a lot more bold and clearer to read. So that's a lot better. Now, I'm at the beginning of my timeline and we have a little bit of a problem. The text box is appearing, but there's no video. So I am going to add another cross dissolve onto my video, zoom in, extend the cross dissolve up to the same point as the video, and now the text box will fade in at the same time as the video. Now if I scrub through the timeline and I start playing, the text box just disappears instantaneously. I don't like that. I think that's not very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another cross dissolve, play the video, and that fades out a lot better now. Okay, so now we have our opening graphic. This video is very, very long. It's an hour long. So you usually, in this case, I'm not going to scrub through most of this because I recorded this video myself, and I know that the only thing that I really needed to fix was, in this case, right here, where I needed to raise the audio because my speaker put the microphone down. So let me listen to how he's talking with the microphone. So things are looking pretty good right here. I'm gonna go to the end of my timeline. And now I'm going to make another graphic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press T so I can make a text box, click right here, and I'm going to type filmed and edited by Ryan Franey, as I am the one who filmed and edited this. So let me just capitalize that. Add a semicolon here. Make sure that your spelling is correct on this, since you really don't want to spell something incorrectly on a video that's going to appear on a public broadcast. So make sure that your spelling is correct. There's no spell check in Premiere by default. Okay, so now we have our text. Go over to the left-hand side under Effect Controls, click this drop-down menu. Some of the settings saved from the previous text box that I made, such as Times New Roman font and the stroke, but it did not save the center alignment, so I have to hit Command A to select everything, click Center Align, click V. I'm gonna click and drag this to the bottom right here. Extend this to the end of my timeline. Add a cross dissolve. Add a second cross dissolve to the end. Scrub to the end. Extend this cross dissolve out to where my first one ended. So now both the graphic and the video will fade out at the same time. And things are looking pretty good here. This video looks good enough to where we're almost ready to export. Now, this last part is only really applicable for when you're working here at MCCAM, but this also is a good example of what works when you need to put multiple clips together at the same time. So in MCCAM's case, they want an ending graphic that shows that this was filmed by MCCAM. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to go back into my folder over here. I need to find it at the moment. Where is it? Here it is. This neon logo video right here, this is something that I created myself. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import this right there, as I did before. I'm gonna click and drag and plop that right in at the end of my timeline. Let's zoom in. Ooh, okay. So now we're encountering a bit of an issue. This video is way too small. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go into scale and I'm going to scale this up. Still doesn't look quite right. So now what I need to do is I need to click on my position, raise this up, lower that just a bit. That looks much better. So I don't want this to start right at the ending over here, since this has a lot of blank space over here. So what I'm gonna do, shorten this, click in front of the video, press backspace. Now we're over here. This audio as a whole is a little bit too loud, so I'm gonna click on the line and lower the audio. Let's listen to this now. There we go. And right about here is a good point where I can start fading out. So press P make a keyframe for the audio, make a second one, press V again, lower the second keyframe, go to the end of this video, shorten it to where I place that second keyframe, add another cross dissolve, place that on my video, click and drag the cross dissolve to where that will start fading out. Let's watch back. And now everything looks pretty good. This video is about ready to be finished. So I'm just gonna go back and check my beginning just to make sure everything's all set and in order. All right, everything is looking good. It's about time that we finally are ready to export. So I am going to go up to the top over here. I'm gonna click File, scroll down, hit Export Media. You can do this also by hitting Command M. So I'm gonna hit Command M and we can go to export. I just like to do it the other way since that's easier for me. Now we are on the export menu. So what you're gonna wanna do first is rename your file. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete all this. Do not delete the .mp4 at the end, all right? It's very important, do not delete that. That is because this is telling the computer what kind of file that this is, so don't delete that. So I'm gonna call this Poetry Night Finished. And I'm gonna call it finished because it's the finished product. I'm gonna click on location. I'm gonna go over to, where is Poetry Night? Right here, click Save. Preset. This preset is going to tell you how the video is going to export. So for example, if I wanted to export this video and post it to YouTube, I would export it as a high quality 1080p HD video. So if you ever want to do that for YouTube, that's the setting that you want to use. I'm going to keep it as match high adaptive bitrate because there isn't really much that we need to change about this, and this is going to broadcast TV. Make sure that your range is set to the entire source. Scaling is scale to fit, and then we click export. And that's it. We are pretty much done. Now all you have to do is simply wait for this video to export. And with that out of the way, we're done. There is nothing more left to teach you. Oh yeah, one other thing that I can tell you is this is gonna take a long time. The longer your video is, the longer it will take to export, especially when using the 4K cameras. As you can see here, it's gonna take 4 hours to export this one video, which is a long time. So be sure that whenever you're ready to export, that you're gonna wanna do this probably overnight, or when you don't have anything else that you need to work with on your computer. That's when you're gonna wanna click export, okay? With that out of the way, I think you're pretty much ready to go. Thank you very much for watching. And with that, I wish you good luck.